Hi, everybody. This is Amanda Rains. I am a 4-H educator in Hardin County, Ohio, and today I'll be presenting to you our Ohio 4-H Teen Mental Health Retreat Sampler. So we had this retreat for the first time in 2019, and we had planned to present and do some of the activities from the retreat at our Ohio 4-H conference to get everyone excited about attending this year. And so I wanted to kind of show you some of the things that we did and had planned. So first of all, the retreat was held at 4-H Camp Ohio. It was an overnight trip from October 12th to 13th in 2019, and we had 4 main goals for this event. We wanted to give our youth a better understanding of what mental health is and how it might affect them. We wanted to teach them self-help strategies to help them deal with their personal stress. We wanted to have them engage in stigma-reducing projects that would help educate other kids about mental health. And then we also wanted to connect our teens with important mental health resources so they could, of course, be an advocate. And for the first year, we had 18 youth attend from all across the state. We had limited it to 20, so we were really close to our goal of hitting that 20 youth. And we had a really great time at Camp Ohio, beautiful weather, and just a really great group of kids for this first time. So what activities did we do throughout that weekend? Well, we started off with some introductions so that we got to know each other, and then we went into some mental health 101 games. And these were meant to get everyone on the same page so that we all had the same terminology and we knew what we were here to talk about. We also engaged in those stigma reducing group projects, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. We did self-help strategy sessions. We did a mental health movie review. And then we also had time for some evening recreation, some downtime to socialize. And so the pictures you're seeing on the screen are 2 drawings. One of our 101 games was we asked groups to get together and draw what they thought anxiety might look like. So as you can see, some of the groups drew a person and what kinds of signs and symptoms they were having. One of the groups drew something that was completely abstract that you can see in the picture, just a big crazy ball of scribbles with all sorts of things adding to that stress. So that helped us kind of all get an idea of what anxiety might be. So one of the things that I want to do to give you a little bit of a taste of an activity, even though we're online, we can still do this activity online. So I'm going to ask a trivia question. I'm going to give you a few seconds to write down what you think the answer is. So the first question is, how many youth in America live with a diagnosed mental health disorder? So this is youth ages 12 to 18. How many live with a diagnosed mental health disorder? 1 in 20, 1 in 10, 1 in 5, or 1 in every 2? Okay, I hope you have your answer written down. The answer is 1 in 5. So according to the National Council on Behavioral Health, 1 in every 5 American teens has a mental health diagnosis in any given year. So that's 20%. And some statistics from other agencies even say 1 in 4% or 1 in 4 teens. So it's a very large population of our youth who are dealing with these stressors and these disorders. And keep in mind that this statistic is only for youth who have been diagnosed. So there are many people who do not get a diagnosis from a doctor, but they are living with a mental health problem. So until it's diagnosed, we consider it a problem, but after it's diagnosed, we consider it a mental health disorder. Next question, which mental health disorder is the most common diagnosis among teens? Anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, or eating disorders? So I'll give you a second to think about that answer. And if you guessed anxiety, then you are correct. So a lot of times we think about depression when we think about our young people, but anxiety is actually the most common mental health disorder diagnosis that a teenager could receive. So of that 1 in 5, or of that 20% of the population of our kids who have a mental health diagnosis, about 31.9% of them have some type of anxiety disorder. So anxiety is not just one diagnosis. There's many different diagnoses that fit under that umbrella of anxiety. So some examples would be generalized anxiety disorder, certain phobias, obsessive compulsive disorder. So there's many different types of anxiety disorders that would fit under that umbrella. Depression is the second most common, and it comes in at 14.3%, and that includes depressive disorders and other mood disorders as well. And then it's also important to note that 11.4% of our population of youth that have a diagnosis have a substance use disorder as well. All right, our next question. Suicide is the blank leading cause of death for teens in the United States. Is it the 10th leading cause of death, the 8th leading cause of death, the 5th leading cause of death, or the 2nd leading cause of death? And this is throughout the United States. It is actually the 2nd leading cause of death. As of 2018, suicide was the 2nd leading cause of death for our American teens. So this is a really big issue that we are dealing with here in our country and also across the world. So what did we do at the retreat to help them combat these statistics and learn about it? Well, the first thing to note was this retreat was not meant to be a therapeutic intervention. The goal of this retreat was to provide education and create advocacy. It was not to do any types of treatment for our teens. But we did want to make sure that they understood that it is completely typical for everyone to have stress. And we wanted to provide them with some self-help tools to help them deal with their daily stress. So we did some breakout sessions, and they got to choose 3 sessions to attend out of the 5 things that were offered. We had yoga that was offered by Teresa Ferrari, our healthy living specialist for 4-H in Ohio. We had vision boarding, which was a goal-setting activity where youth were led by 4-H educator Heather Gottke, and she helps them create vision boards like the one in the middle on the bottom that visually represent their goals so that they could hang this somewhere where they would see it every day to be reminded of their goals. We had a journaling session that was led by 4-H educator Justin Bauer, and he taught them different journaling techniques and the benefits of journaling, and they actually had time to practice journaling about their experience. I led a mindfulness sampler, so we were teaching what mindfulness is and doing some activities. One of the activities that we did was a mindful listening activity. So we can try this. I'm not sure how well it will translate digitally, but in this activity, we used this singing bowl, and we had everyone close their eyes. So go ahead, nobody's watching you, play along, close your eyes. And I'm going to sound this bowl, and you just need to really concentrate on the sound. And when you stop hearing the sound is when you would in person raise your hand, or we would see how long it takes you to stop hearing the reverberation. So we're going to try it for just a second. And that's where I stop hearing it. So let's do it one more time. And I can't hear it anymore. You might have not been able to hear it as long as me, or you might have been able to hear it longer. But that activity is a way that you can just center your focus on one single thing and kind of relax. And so those are the types of things that we did in the mindfulness session. The last session was connecting with nature, and that was led by 4-H Camp Ohio staff. They were led on a retreat or a hike back through the grounds, and they were challenged to think about things that they noticed in nature and how certain senses made them feel. So it was a silent hike, and they were thinking about what they were feeling under their feet or the breeze on their arms and face. They were thinking about what they could hear, what they could smell, and how that made them feel, and how that could ground them. So those were all the sessions that we offered. And like I said, participants got to go to 3 of the sessions, but they were provided with a binder for the whole weekend. So everyone got a binder. It had every single activity that we did for the whole weekend written out so that it could be easily replicated or so that they could keep notes. So all of these sessions were broken down for them so that they could explore them on their own at home and share them with friends and family as well. The big goal for the weekend was the stigma reducing project. So what we did was we broke into different groups that had similar interests to each other about what they thought they might want to teach other kids. Because we know, based on those statistics, that mental health is a big issue for kids. And we have a lot of feedback in Ohio 4-H, especially from those who took the Your Thoughts Matter project book, that they wanted more education about this, that yes, health is a really important part of 4-H. It's our 4th H. So we want to include mental health in that education. And that's kind of how this whole retreat came about, but also how these projects became kind of the center focus of the retreat. So they were broken into groups and they were given some brainstorming tools that they could use together to think about how they would teach other kids about mental health. And so they all the groups, there was 5 different groups, and they all went about it a different way, and we had 5 really great projects at the end. So one of the projects that you can see in the pictures here on the far left, they were talking about how the ripple effect works and how a change for an individual can then impact their society and impact their organization and even impact policy. So they were challenging each other to think about, in terms of mental health, what's one thing I can change that will then change my social circle and then change my organization and then change possibly the policies of how our organization operates. So that was a really, really interesting project because it was such a large scale in terms of the thought behind these stigma reducing actions. The middle top picture, another group was trying to explain stress. So they wanted to teach kids in their clubs what stress is, why some stress is healthy and some stress is not healthy. And one of the activities they did was the classic pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time. And then as you were doing that, they gave you other instructions, like you need to now sing the ABCs, or you need to add hopping on one foot. And the more directions that people had, the more stressful that activity was. And that helped them kind of explain in a metaphor of our lives. Like we have these activities, we have school, we have our family commitments, all of those things that build stress. The other 2 pictures were a really good activity that one group came up with. They put different emotions all over the floor. So you can kind of see the pieces of paper in the group picture that are on the floor. So they said things like fear, happy, stressed, sad, just basic emotions. And then what they did was they read a scenario that would relate to the 4-H experience and had everyone go stand next to the paper that had the emotion they thought they'd feel in that situation. So for example, one of them could have been, you were asked by the president of your club to stand up and lead the pledge. How does that make you feel? For some people, they were standing next to, it makes me feel scared or fearful because I'm nervous, or it makes me feel proud because I was chosen. And it really demonstrated how in the same situation, different people experience different emotions, and that's okay. And that we can support each other through those emotions as long as we can understand why someone would feel the way that they feel. So it kind of helped teach kids how to explain their emotions to other people and be willing to understand that just because someone reacts differently doesn't mean that that is the wrong reaction. So the group projects turned out really well. They were very powerful projects that they were going to take back to their clubs, their schools, and use to help teach what they learned at the retreat. We also had a little bit of fun. We did a mental health movie review, and in this review, we watched Benny and June. So it's a Johnny Depp movie from 1993, and they watched the movie and they were given different discussion topics to think about. And then after the movie was over, they got together in small groups and had discussions on how they thought that movie portrayed certain mental health issues, how that movie might have contributed to stigma or helped reduce stigma, and just the impact of that pop culture moment on how people live with mental health and how people perceive it. So that was a really interesting activity. None of the kids had seen this movie before, so that was really helpful as well because everyone was coming into it with a clean slate. There's also a list of movies in the Mental Health Project book, Your Thoughts Matter. So if you have seen Benny and June, which you should see it because it's a great movie, but if you have seen it, there's a whole list of other movies that could be used to replicate this activity as well. So we do plan on doing this retreat again in 2020, and it's going to be in conjunction with the Ohio Health Heroes training. So we're going to actually have several different tracks at the mental health retreat and the Health Heroes training so that youth who are involved in Health Heroes or youth who want to learn about Health Heroes can do that while they're at the mental health retreat as well. We are extending it, so it's going to be 2 nights, a Friday through a Sunday. That was one of the big pieces of feedback from our teens was this was great, but it wasn't long enough. We need more time to decompress, to think about these things, and we'd really like to do some more of those activities. So save the date, September 25th through the 27th, and that should say 2020 at 4-H Camp Ohio. You can be on the lookout in late summer for more information from your 4-H educator about attending. If you have any questions about the mental health retreat or our mental health project books, you can give me a call. My number's on the screen. You can visit the website for my office to find more information, or you can send me an email, rains.74@osu.edu. So thank you so much for watching this session, and I hope to hear from you and see you at the mental health retreat in September.